All right, Robyn,
Hi.
welcome.
Thank you.
How are you?
Good.
That's good. I've got to get my notes to see where I am. So I don't know if you know, but so typically I do a preparation call as we did earlier in the week, but yours with mine was the longest I've ever had. It ran over an hour, I think, that we were on the phone. I take that to mean that I think it took me a long time to process and understand what it is that you do. I mean, these works are just phenomenal, captivating, and I'd only seen them, in kind of on my computer screen at home at the time. And walking in here today, I'm just absolutely mesmerized. So I think I can understand why I had to spend so long, in the prep talk. So I'm hoping that that prep that we did on, I think it was Monday, might help to streamline things a bit for those in attendance today. So let's see. One of the things you told me in that chat was prior to composing the works in this exhibition, you attempted to make light and shadow the subject in previous works or in experimentations, but that didn't quite work out. Can you tell us what you attempted and why you think or you felt that it didn't work?
No. Well, the previous show, Just Light, which I had with Jan, and that was about could you make the things that make a photograph, which is colour, light, shadow, time, could you make them the subject of the photo? Mm-hmm. And that took a long time for that to happen. And when I first started, just with light, and it's like, wow, the colours are beautiful, but it's not going to hold anyone's attention. Mm. And that was when I started with shapes, with the circle, the rectangle, the square, and then that delineates the colour, gives it form, and gives it three-dimensional depth. So that was the thing for me that you need to make a still image. And probably everyone knows James Turrell's work, and that's more the immersive thing where you're in the light and it's an experience. But a photograph is a moment out of that experience. Mm-hmm. So the photo has to work harder in a way because you're not immersed in it. So then after I made that series, it was like, well, how do I keep going now? And that was how this work happened.
Okay. So that series, was that, 2 years ago? Or?
Yes.
And you exhibited here?
Yes. So in Sydney and here, yeah.
How big were the images?
They were 90 by 90.
Okay. So a bit smaller than these.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess, I'll be trying to reference some of your work because you've had a long career and it's hard, to try to imagine what we're talking about without seeing the pieces here. But can you kind of give us a description of what those pieces were like?
It is hard. It's better if you're in front of them. But they're different from this in that they're created in the studio. Okay. So I'm controlling the light, and I think the best works from that series were ones where it was just experimenting, and then you'd get an image and you go, wow, I don't even know how that happened. Okay. And so I was really keen with this series to be in the thing where I'm not trying to manufacture it, but more I'm responding to what's happening. Okay. So in this work, because it's whatever is happening in the sky, the time of day, like where the sun is, then you're not positioning the light, you're sort of the observer in space. And that's, for me, that's more interesting.
Okay. So the previous work was, as you said, in a studio, you'd set up some lights and then you would take photographs of the light.
Well, I'd set up different things like, you know, I need a shape. What if I change the shape in that way? What if I have another clear area in the middle with a square in that, and then that makes a shadow. And so you just keep playing with that until you get something that you go, oh, that's interesting.
Okay. Yeah, fascinating. So, yeah, what do you think it is about casting light and shadows in three-dimensional forms that, you know, makes the difference?
Because I say in the little essay, the images that you see in January will not be the images that you get in April, because where the sun is in the sky, like the architectural shape doesn't change, but the sun will come in at a different angle. So it'll make a different highlight, a different shadow. And so in that sense, every image is unique. You know, like I can't, even when I know, so the title of the images are like Wednesday, 9th of August, you know, at 15:30 and 45 seconds. So it's exactly at that moment, that's when I've taken that photo.
Sure.
And I can go back the next day at 15:30 and it'll be different. It'll be brighter, cloudier, it'll be... So, I mean, on the one over here, there's a shadow, and I went back and I was like, wow, that's great. And next day I go back, but the shadow's not as distinct or as crisp or as... And it's like, I mean, I still photograph them. And then when I look at them all, it's like, you know, the first one I took was the best one. Or sometimes you go back and you go, oh no, it's good I came back because this one's better. So it's not that's what I like about it. I'm not controlling it. I'm just observing, and you wait. And it's a lot of waiting for things to happen. Yeah.
That's great.
Good for patience.
It's meditative, isn't it?
Yes, it is, yes.
You sent me an email after we talked and you sent me a couple of references, but there was one that I particularly liked, which is a quote from the poet John Keats. And he coins this term, negative capability, which he defines as being in uncertainties, mysteries, doubts, without any irritable reaching after fact and reason. Now, what I think Keats was setting up there in that concept was a contrast to positivism, positivism being the philosophical orientation that suggests we ought to only recognize and accept that which is scientifically verified or mathematically proven. So, yeah, I love this idea of negative capability. And so how does Keats's being in uncertainties, mysteries, doubts resonate with you and your work?
Well, I'm not Keats, but it is...
But you're Robyn, Stacey.
No, but it is the thing of just... I think his thing is about you experience it rather than setting up to have a scientifically provable fact. So it's literally, I think he gives the example like you dive into the pool and you don't know what you're going to experience until you're in the pool. So the only way to experience it is to dive in. So, and it's the same with making work. You just start and something will come and it's not maybe what you thought you were going to get, and but that doesn't matter. And sometimes it's better, sometimes it's disappointing, but it's just an ongoing series of experimentation. And it doesn't... I guess then it's an emotional response to the thing where the colour or whatever that, and the accident, that allows for the accident. So all of these are made using colour gels, which if people know about theatre lighting, you have a tungsten light and you have a colour gel over it. So I was buying very large sheets of it and you put it on the roof, and I was buying them from a DJ shop, and the guys in the DJ shop went, well, after these are gone, there won't be any more because all the DJs use LED lights. And that means you control it, you dial in the colour, everything's known. So there can't be an accident. And that's the thing that I find with the digital that I'm not so embracing of. You don't even know what you could get. Like you're setting up, it's going to be this and it's going to look like that. And so there can't be any surprises. And that, in one way, people like that. I know exactly what I'm going to get, but you might get something better than what you know, and you've got to allow for that. And that's what I like about analogue technology, that there's that area of play where you're not in control, so that things can happen and you go, wow, I wouldn't have thought, like all of these things in the, like the box, the orange one at the back there, that's because it rained and then the sun came out and the gels cracked. And I'm like, oh, wow, that looks interesting. And then at one point of the day, it only happens at one point of the day, the light reflects back onto the roof. So then it looked 3D like a box. And so it was, it's like, well, I'll just leave it and see what happens. And then there's one round here and people go, oh, you made a floral motif and put it on the aperture, on the skylight. And I'm like, no, same thing. It rained, it cracked. And then I left it for a really long time and it just filled up with debris. And then it was like, oh, it looks like a seed pod. And it has a very organic kind of feel to it. And again, I didn't make it. I just waited for that to happen. So that's what I find interesting in the, like you're working with it rather than controlling it. And that's more interesting.
I love that. So the show is called, it's called On a Clear Day, which clearly wasn't always the case, right?
No.
But the talk I've titled Light and the Sublime, and I'll delve into this concept of the sublime a little bit. But a lot of what you're saying, really resonates in terms of, not knowing and not being sure or not having an explanation, and and the feelings associated with that. And it seems like you really embrace that in the process of making these works. So how does that, I don't know, how long did it take, like from start to finish?
I over 2 years.
Oh, wow.
I mean, there's a lot more work. But yeah, it's just you have a space and you can only fit so many works and you make a selection. And but you sort of get to a point where you think, I guess I did a full cycle. Like there were some months of the year where the sun is too low and nothing happens. So actually in winter, I didn't do any because just nothing was happening. And then the summer, the other seasons, summer, the spring, autumn, you get different, effects, or the light comes in at different angles. And,
Sure. So I wanted to ask, over the course of those 2 years, what are some of the feelings that you experienced while undertaking this process?
I think the thing that really I didn't expect and I found quite amazing was that the light is actually palpable when you're standing in the space, and you don't think of light as having physicality, but it's almost granular when you're, particularly blue. I don't know what it is about the colour blue, but you feel like you're actually walking through it. You can feel the presence of it.
Wow.
Which there's one photo of me in the hallway taking the photo, and you can see the granularity in that because it's taken on an iPhone, and it's an old iPhone that's not super
high definition.
Yeah. But that really amazed me, that light had that presence. I wasn't expecting that. Yeah, and that's the difference between the experience and the photograph. So I am hoping sometime to get invited to make the experience.
Sure. So it sounds like the feelings of wonderment and kind of fascination, like as this is unfolding in your own home, right?
Yes. Oh, everyone's a surprise, and everyone's sometimes you go, that colour's a bit weak, and you have to go up and add another gel or change the gel or whatever.
Yeah.
But it was never not fascinating or interesting. Yeah.
Great. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with Robyn's process, but for those of you who aren't, I think it's worth touching on. It took me a long time to get my head around it, but let's see how we go. And correct me if I get this wrong, but what I think we're looking at is actually the ceiling in a corridor in your house, right?
That's right, yeah.
And you've placed a coloured gel, on top of the skylight on the roof.
Yes,
yeah. And it's as a result of the placement of that gel in whatever colour that then we're getting the light come through.
Yeah.
So then the photograph is sort of set on its side. So you're looking at it, it's almost like a hallway or a room or something, but it's actually the ceiling.
Well, it is a hall. I mean, yes, but you're looking at the ceiling.
Yeah. No, that's fascinating. So tell us a bit about that process, because it's quite physical and intensive by the sounds of it. Like you've got to go up there and put, I don't know, these films. Can you tell us a bit about that part of the work?
Yes, you need two people. So
is the other person here?
Yes, John's here, my partner.
Okay.
And at the end of it, he went, "We're not doing any more of these, are we?" But so we'd go up on the roof. I'd have a selection of gels. We'd tape them lightly, and then I'd go back downstairs. He's got a phone, I've got a phone. I look up. I take some photos with the phone. I look up and I go, the one at the far end, that looks good. This one, can you put another layer on top of that? And then you go, oh, no.
And John's like, yeah, sure.
Yeah. And he's like, yes. I can't hear you. And then you just keep doing that till you got, I'd go, yes, that looks right. Then I go back up and then we tape them down, securely. But not, because I'm changing them, they're not, there were times when in a strong wind, some of them got torn. And I got a really great, I was looking one day and because the walls are white, and I'm going, how have I got this white stripe on the wall? And I look up and the gel's been lifted off and it's flapping, so it's coming and going and coming and going. So, I better take that. So whatever happened, I just went, I better take that. But it is the other thing I discovered, which you can see on that one round the corner, I overlaid I had a yellow gel and it didn't quite fit. So then I thought, oh, I don't want to go back down, and I had pink, and I put a pink gel over it, and I thought, well, it'll just go orange and that'll be fine. And then when I got down, you actually get the yellow and then you do get the pink. And I was really amazed at that it registered them as
bleed
separate.
into each other.
And they do bleed, and then there's a separate pink, and then the other one was blue. So at a certain point you get the pink and blue when you get this sort of mauve, and at the other end you've got this yellow, gold, and then the pink. So it was like, oh, okay, I might do more of that, so then I did overlay slightly different colours, or not, not have one go all the way and things like that. Yeah, so
fascinating. And when you say gel, is it like a clear film?
It's
a gel,
large sheet. It's like a sheet of film, but it's a solid colour. So it's, there's many shades of blue. There's yellows, orange, whatever colour. I mean, basically, whatever was in the DJ shop, I was like.
I love that you get in the DJ shop. Now, there are a few things. So there's the gel, there's the camera that you use, and there's also the printing process. And from what I understand, the gels are no longer being manufactured, or they're about to be discontinued.
Well, that's what the guys in the shop, they went, the only people we sell them to are you and schools that can't afford good lighting. And he went, they just went, when we've sold all these, we're not going to buy them anymore. But they went, it'd be cheaper to buy them through us than to go to Roscoe or one of the big companies that make them. They went, we'll give you a better deal. But then you have to buy like enough blue that would do you a lifetime, so I'm thinking, how would I, because I want different colours.
Sure.
So I'm thinking about it, but yeah.
So, yeah, there's a sense in which, we see this throughout history, right? Like certain technologies arrive and then they depart, and so it feels kind of similar that in some time maybe these particular gels may not be available. And then there's, of course, your printing process. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Well, all of these are printed on Fujiflex paper. So I photograph on a digital Hasselblad. So it has really good sensor, can deal with a lot of detail, and they blow up. They blow up beautifully. And then it's printed on paper, but instead of an enlarger, it's lasers. So the lasers make the exposure, but then it goes through chemistry. So it's an analog. So it's called dip and dunk, and it just goes through the rollers in the different chemicals. And so it's a photograph at the end of the day. And so when I gave the talk here last time about Just Light, I went, the difference between a photograph and a digital print is, in a photograph, the image and the paper are fused in the chemistry. And the photograph is they are the same thing. The image and the photograph are one. In a digital print, it's ink sprayed onto paper. And if you look at a digital print on the side, because the black's always the last layer, there's always a little ridge because it sits over everything. So because I've spent a long time doing photography, I want to keep the photograph going as long as I can. And so all the papers are starting to disappear. So the metallic paper that I printed Just Light on, that's not made anymore.
Wow.
And there was only one place in the world making them, in America, and they don't make it. And now these ones on Fujiflex, they've got about another year.
It's making me sad, Robyn.
Yeah.
Feels like a kind of extinction or something.
Well, it just is a different, you know, it's all, it's changing.
Yeah.
So it's just like you have to go with the like, I mean, I shoot on a digital camera.
Sure.
But there is a quality to this that isn't reproducible on a
digital print.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, yeah, go on.
No, I was just going to say, in support of the photograph, I was at Art Bank recently and they've got some of my work, and they were saying, you know, they've got work that they bought in the 90s and they were going, it's really amazing. Like a lot of people, the colour's faded, but yours looks really good. All the other inkjets have faded, and I'm like, because this isn't an inkjet, it's a photograph.
Yeah.
And I mean, inkjets are a lot better now, but early inkjets, they're not so stable, and yeah.
Wow, it's fascinating. So the process, you've got analog light. Obviously, the light's coming through naturally. You capture it digitally, and then you print it in an analog way. Yeah.
Well, yeah, a mixture of digital analog. I mean, because the exposure, I guess. Well, it is. It's just a laser light instead of a larger light. Yeah.
Sure. There were two things. So you touched on the term experience, and of course I mentioned the sublime. I think we need to talk about these two things, maybe in turn. So let's talk about experience, because you've said it in passing, and I don't know that everyone knows what you mean, right? So you set up these experiences, right, where people walk through, I don't know, light.
Well, I mean, I'm the only one. I mean, if you're not in my house, you're not experiencing it.
Sure. But I'm referring to, I guess, the camera obscura.
The camera obscura, yes.
Yeah.
Because this same kind of thing, I started with the photos, and I did a big thing here in Brisbane called Cloudland, which was at the Brisbane Museum. So that was a large project. But after a while, and I did artist studios, so I did Wendy and Brett Whiteley's house where Brett had his studio. I did Hans Heissen's studio in Adelaide. I did Martin Sharp's studio in Sydney. And the thing about the camera obscura influences this work in that it's the light, it's weather dependent, it depends on where the sun is in the sky. They only last for a very short time. Like these images are maybe 20 minutes and then they're not there anymore. So the same with the camera obscura. And then, so if you're not in the room, it didn't happen. But I'm in the room with the camera and I take the photo. And after a few exhibitions, I was invited, like in the Adelaide Biennial, I made 2 camera obscuras so people could sit in the room and experience the camera obscura. So you see the clouds moving across the sky, you see traffic driving around the room, you see people walking upside down, because the way the camera obscura works is the way the image is formed in the eye. So everything comes in upside down and in reverse. And because of gravity, and we've evolved to walk upright, your brain flips it over because we couldn't navigate our way around the world. So the experience, people love the experience because it's like you're in a movie. You can see everything happening outside you, but you're in this dark room watching it all. So like at the Sofitel Hotel in Melbourne, and I was artist in residence there, and you can be on the 29th floor and you can see everything happening. I mean, they're little people, but you can see everything happening, yeah.
That's amazing. Now, just for context, is it right? So camera obscura, the term camera there means chamber or room, right?
Yeah, it's really
So as not to be confusing, like sometimes we're talking about a handheld camera like that one, but in terms of camera obscura, we're talking about the room. And then what do you do? Like,
well,
in order to make that happen, you black out the room.
You black out the room completely, and then you make a small opening to the outside, and then the light comes in, and then you need to sit in the room for a little while. Like the longer you sit, the more the pupils dilate, the more you can see in the room. And then you don't see as much colour as you do in the photographs.
Okay.
Because the rods and cones in your eyes need a lot of light to see colour. Whereas a camera doesn't work on rods and cones, so it's just the exposure time. And then, but like when I was doing them and I had assistants, and you set it up, and it's sort of hard work depending on the room, how much you black out. And I'd go, well, it's okay, I'll be fine now if you want to go. And they're like, no, I'll stay. And people really do like the experience of the room. It's really quite fantastic. And and then for I think the Art Gallery of South Australia, at the end of the Biennale, for all the regional galleries, they go, what work do you want? And they went, we want the camera obscura. So we did 2 years, like they do 5 shows a year, different regional galleries, and we'd go and set up a camera obscura there. So,
Oh, that's wonderful. So for those of you who maybe haven't seen it, it's worth Googling camera obscura. Robyn, Stacey, I was blown away by some of the images I found on the internet. So that speaks to experience. So let's talk a bit about the sublime. I've got a little excerpt here. The sublime is a concept that dates back to Longinus in the 1st century and reached a high point with Immanuel Kant in 1790. So Longinus suggests that the effects of the sublime are loss of rationality, some kind of alienation or bewilderment, deep emotion, pleasure, and exaltation. For Edmund Burke, the sublime is related to self-preservation and can evoke a sort of terror from a lack of comprehension or lack of understanding that, when resolved, might result in delight. And in Kant, we find that the enjoyment of the sublime is not to do with the application of cognitive capacities, but instead it's an assault on cognitive powers that enlivens something affective in us. And I found that concept to be pertinent to your work, because when I was looking at it on screen, I was like, what am I looking at? I couldn't make sense of it, but I had a lot of emotion come up. And when I walked in and saw the work for the first time today, I just was like, wow. So this concept, which you may, have come across before, or maybe you're thinking about for the first time, do you think it relates to your work, or is this a sublimity? And I mean, if you need to be modest, that's okay. Maybe let's talk about light and shadow and the sublime. Or if you want to talk about, have you had moments where you're making the work where you're just kind of overwhelmed with what you're experiencing and can't quite make sense of it?
That's really hard. I am always surprised by what appears and excited. It's hard. I mean, because for me, involved in the sublime is terror.
Yeah.
That's part of, and I've never felt terror in the rooms. It's more, it's like, wow, this is incredible. I can't believe that this can be, that this is happening. And so it's more that than it's not a terror experience.
Yeah. And
We all like it.
I guess terror, or at least the way I read it, in whether it's Burke or Kant, comes about from a kind of breaking down of one's faculties of understanding, right? And so it's in contrast to Keats here, who's saying, well, if you're open to the uncertainty, the mystery, and the doubts, then there's no terror. There's just a kind of play. I think you touched on the term play before. So, maybe for you it's playful.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess wonderment. I mean, you do go. I mean, almost everything that you're seeing here is like that. I mean, that's just the light on the wall, but it looks 3D. That comes in those sort of blobs, and the way the clouds formed, and it's like, wow, that looks like a door to the sky, but that's not. If you went, I'm going to make a door to the sky, like you'd probably make something dreadful.
Yes.
So it's again just allowing it to happen, being present and taking it. And I guess and then it is the thing that amazes me, I guess, is that, and that I love Robert Irwin's work in the same way that if you're not there, it didn't happen. And the only difference is I'm there with a camera.
Sure.
So then it can be shown to other people. But I love those things where in that moment that thing happened, and if you weren't in the room, it doesn't exist for you. So it is that's the magic thing of it for me, yeah.
And I guess for me, there was an element of the sublime. I wasn't terrified.
Thank you.
There was an element of the sublime in the sense that I didn't know what I was looking at. I saw these images on my screen and I was like, I like them, but what is this? And there's a degree to which I wanted to walk a fine line between explaining what's going on here, because there's a sense of mystery to the works, right? Like, what is that? But when you're the artist and you're making it, then yes, I've applied a film and it's on the skylight and all this. But I think, I think it's wonderful that you've been able to create these things that are just so captivating. So for me, sublime is positive.
Thank you. Yes,
Yeah.
we'll go with that.
Good. Look, I want to congratulate you on the show. I think it's wonderful. And I think it might be a good time to maybe open up to the audience and see if anyone has any questions or comments.
First of all, I love the work. Congratulations. It's beautiful. Really harnesses the magic of ephemerality, light, and I guess how nature is able to transform it instantaneously and bring it awe-inspiring sensibility to it. But your early work too was, correct me if I'm wrong, but did you do beautiful still life?
Still life, yes.
That were like masters paintings. And so I'm really interested in your journey from creating still lives that obviously have to do with light, photography, but then into really harnessing natural light and your previous work, artificial light, and using just light as the essence, as your platform for photography. Probably that camera obscura was a big entry point to that, but I guess, I'd love to know your journey and then, your thoughts from doing those still lives to using this natural light.
Yeah, well, I think I spent 13 years doing the still life. So it was a long journey. And then the camera obscura, I mean, the great thing about the still life is it's all about light. Like those compositions, when you look at still life paintings, which I've always, since I was a child, I've loved them. The light in them is incredible, and it's usually very simple light, like a single light source up high, like a window kind of light. And so the lighting is really important in still life. It kind of does create the arrangement and then the way that it's lit. They're the two things that kind of make the still life. And then the way the camera obscura happened was I was invited to the Sofitel. I mean, they all kind of come to an end. Like the still life, I was working with collections and they had about over 1 million objects in each collection, and I was there for 3 or 4 years with each collection. And then it's like, well, there's no more for me that I can do here. Like I've done all that. You get to a point where you go, well, now I'm just repeating myself. I'm not going into anything new. And then when I was offered the artist in residence at the Sofitel in Melbourne, and because they have that incredible view over Melbourne, was this thing of if I could bring the view into the room, that would be interesting. And that's how I came up with the camera obscura. That was the way to bring the view into the room. And then that just was like, one of the names for the camera obscura was the magic mirror of life. So it just was really fascinating. And then from that it just kind of kept progressing until, as I was saying early on, could you make everything that makes a photograph the subject matter itself? So my whole practice over like 40 years has really been about photography as much as it's about a particular genre or subject matter. It's photography itself and the medium. And so finally you get to the point where, okay, now it's just what the things that make the medium as the subject.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Thank you for sharing.
No, thanks for the question. Yeah.
Could I just ask, did you do What's Point? Did you do it on camera obscura? What's Point?
Where I did one, Taylor Square. I did some at Stills Gallery for a show there.
I just remember seeing some in Sydney or something about Sydney. What's Point? Yeah, maybe
I think Taylor Square. I don't think so. Not particularly in Potts Point.
no.
Yeah.
Maybe it
sorry.
was your exhibition might have been somewhere.
Yeah.
So just sort of on that point of how your work is about the nature of photography and photographic processes, and you mentioned sort of analogue, I'm not saying analogue versus digital, but I guess in a continuum of the development of photography as an art form, as a process. Have you kind of projected in your mind what's next in like future bodies of work? That, like, are there other areas of the photographic process and photography itself that you still feel that you haven't explored?
I'm working on it. Yeah.
That was succinct.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jeff.
Robyn, congratulations on the show. You mentioned James Turrell at the start, and been pushing up to see a couple of those rooms or spaces where he's sort of created this window to the sky sort of thing. So, and then later you were saying, well, yours was different. This is different because of the photograph, not experience. But then you said, actually, I'd like to do an experience. So will yours be different from James Turrell's?
So what's
Will
mine?
yours be different from James Turrell's, or
Um,
an idea about what that experience
Well, the thing I mean, probably Robert Irwin in a way is more interesting to me because he just uses available light. So whereas James Turrell uses neon fluoro, like a mixture of different light. And
just to clarify, I was just thinking of those ones where he creates a room and you just look in the sky through a
yeah, I mean, his is more about the experience of seeing, that he wants you to experience the experience. And I don't know, I'm a big fan of his work. I mean, I haven't made one, I haven't been invited to do one, so until that happens,
something like that, or
I don't know until you get the, yeah.
His work, so when you've got the Oculus, he has LED lights transforming the walls, so changing the colour of the walls, so that when you look at the sky, the colour of the sky is affected by the colour of the interior of the space as well. So it's an interplay between the two colours.
Yeah.
So it uses natural light, but it's also artificial light as well. It's what does the natural light.
I think that's everyone.
Great. Thanks so much, Alain and Robyn. Thanks very much.
Yeah.